'Cause it's just loose lips. I chat better than I sing, so go ahead and enjoy.
Well, totally different. Now people are often looking for something more unusual, the sort of a weirder comedy like I do, the surreal comedy. When I started off, no one wanted anything like that. Everyone wanted the safest sort of club comedy, and I was always the middle act. When I was starting off, it would usually be there'd be an opening, of course, compare, then an opening 20, and then then the compare go back on. Then I'd go on for 10 minutes where I could do the least damage, and then a 20-minute act to mop things up, and then obviously the closer. And so things have hugely evolved to the point where now, of course, people really want the unusual and surreal comedy, and a lot of people are bored of just hearing the same old thing. And of course, the subsequent, because of all this, the theatre world is the sort of live touring and theatre world is becoming much bigger, and the comedy clubs are becoming much smaller because people want less of that. Of course, the wonderful thing is for me that despite the fact people want more weird stuff and there's more people doing weird stuff, fortunately hardly any of them doing stuff as weird as me. So I still have my my niche, as it were. Yes, it has changed so much, and I think it's like the zeitgeist has changed. And when I started off, it was so difficult, really. And I remember people would say to me, just keep going until you become fashionable. And I did. And I kept going until I became more fashionable.
Did you have your own full audience then?
No, not at the start. At the start, it was just going around comedy clubs and people just saying, oh, it's shit, mate. And then maybe 10, 15, probably more like 15 years ago, I started to, yellow enough for me now. You can't quite see with the light there, but it is getting yellower. I started to sort of hand out things to people saying, oh, if you enjoyed my comedy, you know, you can join my society, and I've got shows. So I started to put on shows, people liked it. And I would go around after a club audience, and it would be 50-50. Some people would say, oh, thank you, I'd really like to join your thing and come to a show. And other people would say, you're a shit, mate, I don't want to take your thing. But of course, you know, your leaflet, because I wasn't interested in the people who didn't like it, didn't matter to me. It was only the people who liked it. And then the people who liked it, that was great, because they would come to my shows. And then what would happen in the early stages of my career is that it would be 50-50 in the audience. Some of them would love it, some of them hated it, and the people who hated it would spoil it for the people who loved it. But then I had an audience, and they all loved it, and suddenly the whole dynamic changed. So yeah, that was the sort of turning point. Was sort of tapping into that, you know, you know, tapping into the people who really loved it. That made a big difference.
Did you still know you were onto something at that time before that whole audience were with you?
Sort of, but I think I mean, I remember one time someone saying to me, you know, why are you carrying on, Paul? It's going so badly. And I think I just my joke answer is I say I'm a very unimaginative person, so I couldn't think of anything else to do. And there is a sort of truth to that. I sort of couldn't think of anything. I just thought, well, I must carry on being a comedian and just doing this. And I always thought it's always one gig too early to give up. I always thought I'll do another one, and then I can give up after, and then I'll do another one, and it just carried on like that. And also, I think, you know, I mean, looking back, in fact, not looking back, but I know now that I was, it all sounds silly this, but I was suffering real mental health difficulties, which are now treated medically, and I'm all fine. But I do wonder whether if I hadn't had those difficulties, which had terrible effects on my, not on me on stage, but on my who I was and my self-esteem and my psyche, I wonder whether if I had been a bit more normal, in inverted commas, and a bit more, I wonder whether I would have carried on, because I think if I hadn't been so ill, I probably would have just thought, you know, don't keep doing this to yourself, Paul. But actually, in a strange way, so yes, I think that actually helped me that was the reason I carried on. So in a weird way, that was a great blessing, even though it was difficult times, and I'm glad those times are over now. That actually is what kept me doing it, really.
Would you say it's your salvation in a sort of way, the performing side of it was?
I don't think so. That would be wrong to think that. I've always said from the start that performing is not a therapy. From the very beginning of when I first performed 23 years ago, 24 years ago, I said to myself, this is not a therapy. I'm going to go and perform this as a job. And if I have problems in my life, in my real life, in my sort of real person, you know, then I have to deal with that separately. So performing has never been a therapy to me, but I suppose I'm making this slightly tangential point that because of the problems I had, the sort of mental health issues, it had the strange effect that even though a normal person would have given up, I just carried on. So it was never a therapy, but it did actually cause me to carry on. And I'm glad I did, of course. Then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
How did you get into it?
I got into it really at university by chance. Just people said, "Oh, give it a go," and I thought, "I'll try it once to see what it's like." And I just loved it so much. I just knew immediately that was going to be my career. So yeah, I mean, I just it was sort of by chance in a way, as a lot of things are, I suppose. And I suppose, like a lot of things to do with performance, there are sort of a mass of contradictions that when one performs on stage, you're giving everything, but you're also not making any effort all at once. You really care, of course, as a performer, but you also don't care. And I suppose as a performer, I suppose I am a natural performer in a way, of course, but I'm also not a natural performer. So who knows whether I would have discovered that if it wasn't for the chance that I just started doing it.
'Cause it's just love.